Today we are doing yet another edition of NHL Deal or No Deal. This is episode 13 now. We've been doing this series for a very long time, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be the final one that I do before the trade deadline. And the biggest reason why is I'm seeing a lot of the same names in these mock trades as I have in recent episodes, and I really just don't want this series to get too repetitive. At this point, you guys know how this works. About a day ago, I posted this on my community tab telling you guys to comment your mock trades, and at the time I started picking through them, there was 187 total comments. Now, obviously, that's a ton of comments to go through, and I can't feature every single one in the video, so I cannot stress this enough. I apologize if your comment wasn't featured in today's video. I know I see a lot of comments on other videos of people getting kind of frustrated that their mock trades are never featured in a deal or no deal. Just continue to try. There's going to be numerous other interactive videos like this on the channel. I try to do as many as I can, so just make sure to keep that in mind. I can't feature every comment or the video would just be way too long. But now, with all that being said, let's get right into episode number 13 of NHL Deal or No Deal with the first comment. Kicking off the video, I had to feature the most liked comment, and this one came from Sharpie74, who says Lucic for a bag of pucks. A little bit harsh, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that think that's a great deal. For me, I got no comment on this one. But now for the first serious comment. This one also did have a good amount of likes, but this person says the Flames get Kapanen and the Leafs get Travis Hamonic, who agrees to an extension, and Sam Bennett. The explanation is the Flames get a right wing that they desperately need, and the Leafs get a shutdown D-man and a gritty playoff performer in Sam Bennett. Now, honestly really like the idea of Sam Bennett going to Toronto, kind of filling that void that they're missing since they no longer have Nazem Kadri. And honestly, at this point, it seems like it's kind of written on the wall that Kasperi Kapanen is going to be traded in some type of package like this, whether it's involving a shutdown D-man like Travis Hamonic or a backup goaltender like Alex Georgiev. It really just seems like there's a very strong chance he's not going to be a Maple Leaf past the trade deadline, and honestly, this overall package in return I think would make Toronto better as a team, and I feel like Kapanen would do really well in the top 6 of Calgary. Now, the one thing about this is how would they make the money work, because everybody knows Toronto really doesn't have that much cap space to spare, and Hamonic and Bennett's money combined is about $6 million, while Kapanen is only making 3.2. So I feel like there would have to be some salary retention on Calgary's side or something like that. But honestly, just the overall general idea of this trade, I really like. So I'm going to go ahead and say deal if they could make the money work. Next up, this trade comes from Bruins fan 88, who says Edmonton receives Paige, Duclair, and a 3rd round pick, and Ottawa receives Jesse Puljujarvi, Ethan Bear, and a 4th round pick. Now, honestly, I'm not quite sure if I like this trade. I feel like Ottawa wouldn't be getting enough in return for what they're actually giving up. Paige has been very good for them this season, and while yeah, he is set to become a UFA, he's still a very valuable asset for them. And when it comes to Duclair, he has been arguably their best player besides Paige and obviously Thomas Chabot. He's an all-star. He's on pace to score like 35 goals. He's having an amazing season, and he's still a relatively young player, so I don't know why so many people think they're going to go ahead and trade him. He's honestly a piece that they could keep around for the future. I do, however, like the idea of Paige going to Edmonton. I've said that on the channel numerous times before, but I'm not quite sure if this is a package that would get it done or if Duclair would be involved in the trade either. So I'm going to say no deal for this one. This next comment comes from 37 Will Dog, who says Vegas acquires Matthew Dumba from Minnesota in exchange for Cody Eakin and John Merrill to make the salaries work, Jack Duggan, a 1st this year and a 3rd next year. Now, this is a very interesting trade. It's kind of well known that Vegas wants to upgrade their blue line and bring in a top 4 defenseman, and acquiring Matthew Dumba, they would be doing exactly that. Even though he isn't having the greatest year for the Minnesota Wild, we know what Matthew Dumba is capable of. He's already had a 50-point season, and he's pretty strong in his own end as well. It's just I'm not quite sure if Minnesota would want to trade Matt Dumba, because he's kind of like a franchise cornerstone there. He's only 25 years old, and in my opinion, he's going to continue to get better and better. But if they ever did want to go the route to trading him, you know, you do have the Seattle expansion draft coming up, and they have a lot of really good defensemen that they have to protect, so maybe they do trade a guy like Matthew Dumba, who knows? And if they did, I honestly think this would be a pretty good return. Jack Duggan is looking like a very good prospect. Vegas drafted him in the 5th round back in 2017. He's having a great year for Providence College with 42 points in 25 games. They would also be acquiring a 1st round pick, so that draft pick and Jack Duggan would kind of be the main parts of this deal. I'm still not quite sure if that is enough for Matt Dumba, just because of what he has already shown at the NHL level, and even though Jack Duggan's having a really good year in college, that doesn't mean he's going to be a good NHL player. Remember, this guy was a 5th round pick. So honestly, I do find this trade pretty intriguing. thinking, I am going to say no deal just because, again, I don't know if that's quite enough to pry Matt Dumba away from Minnesota, but I feel like the idea of this trade is pretty good. Moving on to the next trade, this person says AA and Svech, which is Andreas Athanasiou and Evgeny Svechnikov, I'm guessing, and a second round pick for Alex Georgiev and Lias Andersson. Now, honestly, as a Red Wings fan, I really like this trade. Detroit doesn't really have a goaltender in their system that I can really see being the guy there for the future. They have some decent goaltending prospects, but none that really jump out at you. I think getting a young guy like Georgiev would honestly be really good, and Lias Andersson too. Why not take a shot at a guy that really just hasn't worked out with the team that drafted him? And I've been saying this on the channel for a long time now. I'm kind of tired of Andreas Athanasiou in Detroit. He's having a really bad year, and I just don't know if he's going to be a part of the future of the team. And then you also have Evgeny Svechnikov in the deal, who was a former first-round pick by Detroit back in 2015, but his development has really took a hit, especially after missing an entire year. So honestly, I do like the overall idea of this trade. Maybe take away that second-round pick, because I don't think Detroit should give up too much for a prospect that hasn't shown anything at the NHL level and a goaltender whose numbers actually haven't been that great this year. But it is kind of the same thing for the other side. Svechnikov hasn't shown anything at the NHL level, and Athanasiou's not really having a good year at all. Me being a Red Wings fan, I honestly think I would say deal to this one, and maybe that's just because I want to see Athanasiou traded, and I think bringing in Georgiev would be a smart move. But if you're a Rangers or Red Wings fan, make sure to let me know your thoughts on this trade down in the comment section. Moving along now, I'm going to try to go through these a little bit quicker because I have a lot left and I don't want the video to be too long, but this one comes from Nufty Season, who says the New York Islanders get Brendan Saad and Chicago gets a 2020 first and second round pick. This person also adds that it brings more depth and experience to a young New York Islanders team, and that definitely does make sense, and New York is a team that will probably be looking to add at the trade deadline because they are very good and I think should try to get better for the playoffs. But honestly, I'm just not quite sure what Chicago is going to be doing because they are right there. You know, they string together a couple more wins and continue to play like they have been playing, then they are going to find themselves in a playoff spot. So if that happens, then maybe they won't be looking to trade a guy like Brendan Saad. And also, Brendan Saad isn't having an excellent year. He's only got 20 points in 37 games, so maybe the Islanders don't even want to give up a first round pick for him, so I'm going to go ahead and say no deal to this one. Next up, we got a trade from Johnny Tomatoes, who says the Penguins trade Galchenyuk and a third round pick to the LA Kings for Tyler Toffoli. Now, there is a really good chance that LA kind of just cleans house at the deadline, where you see guys like Tyler Toffoli traded. It also recently came out that they're willing to trade Alec Martinez as well. But honestly, I'm just not quite sure if this trade would make sense for the Kings because Galchenyuk is younger than Toffoli, but he's not that much younger and he's not having a good year either. The third round pick is nice and everything, but I feel like if they trade Toffoli, they're gonna want to get like a second and a prospect at least or something like that. So for that reason, I'll say no deal to this one. Moving along now to the next trade. This one comes from Mr. Potato Head, who says Ilya Kovalchuk and Noah Juleson to Boston for Urho Vaakanainen and a third round pick. Now, there definitely is a good chance that Montreal kind of flips Ilya Kovalchuk to a team as a rental because his value is probably better now than it was when he was with the Kings for sure, because Kovalchuk's playing really well for Montreal. And the team as a whole isn't playing the greatest and probably won't make the playoffs, so maybe they would be better suited trying to get something in return for him, and this trade would have him packaged along with Juleson for Vaakanainen, but I'm going to go ahead and say no deal to this one. I think Vaakanainen is a great defensive prospect, and with the slight chance that maybe Boston does lose Torrey Krug to free agency, I think they're going to need a guy like him to step up into the lineup, so I like the idea of them getting Kovalchuk, but this particular trade, I'm going to say no deal. Next up, we have a trade that's a little bit more on the fantasy side as opposed to being very realistic and there being a good chance that it could actually happen, but I do like to feature a couple of these in the videos just to keep it interesting. This one comes from Jake Crandallmeyer. Hopefully I'm saying your last name properly, but this person says the Sharks acquire Ilya Sorokin, a first and second round pick, and the Isles get Timo Meier. Now, the reason I say this is unrealistic because I don't see any scenario where San Jose would trade Timo Meier, but Ilya Sorokin is an amazing goaltending prospect. He is 24 years old and has been playing in the KHL since the 2012-13 season. His numbers over there this year are just ridiculous, and they'd also be getting a first and second round pick, so that's a really good return for Timo Meier. But again, I just don't see any scenario where the Sharks would even want to trade Timo just because he's going to be a big part of that team for the future, so for that reason, I'll say no deal. But just in terms of value on each side, I feel like he did a pretty good job with this trade. Moving along, this one comes from Jets Reviews, and they say the Jets acquire Alec Martinez and the Kings get a second round pick and a a 4th round pick. Now, obviously previously in the video, I did mention that it came out that the Kings were open to listening to offers on Alec Martinez. And in the video I made talking about trades that I think should happen, and I said in that video the Jets need to acquire a defenseman, I had Alec Martinez as one of those guys they could potentially get. So I do like this trade a lot. I think Martinez would bring a good veteran presence to the Jets top 4. He's won a Stanley Cup before, and while maybe, yeah, his play isn't as good as it once was, I still think he'd be very valuable for Winnipeg. And in terms of what the Kings would want in return, I'm honestly not quite sure. I don't think it would take too much to bring him in. Like, I honestly don't think the Jets would have to give up a first. If the Kings were asking for a first, I probably wouldn't do it if I'm the Jets, just because they're kind of on the bubble, and that 1st round pick could end up being a lottery pick if they don't make the playoffs, and that's definitely way too much to give up for Martinez. But if the trade is just like as Jets Reviews has it here, I think I would honestly say deal. And now for the final mock trade of the video, another one including Brendan Saad, this one coming from Moose Hockey 09, who says Edmonton gets Brandon Saad and a 2020 3rd rounder, and Chicago just gets Edmonton's 2020 1st round pick. Explanation Moose Hockey gives is Chicago could use another young forward from 13 to 21, I would say, in the draft, also $6 million in cap space for a free agent, and Edmonton could use a solid winger for Draisaitl or McDavid to score 25 goals and help out. Now, I do like the idea of Brendan Saad going to Edmonton. I think he would be great alongside either Draisaitl or McDavid, but Edmonton only has about $1.2 million in cap space, and Saad, like he said, has a $6 million cap hit. So for that reason, I'm gonna have to say no deal, but if Chicago did want to trade Brendan Saad, I think Edmonton would be a team that could be in the market for him. So that is going to wrap up episode 13 of NHL Deal or No Deal. Like I said at the start, I do apologize if your comment wasn't featured in the video, and if it never has been in a video. I try to get as many people in as possible, but you have to understand that I can't feature every single one. But with all that being said, I really hope you guys did all enjoy today's video, and if you did, please make sure to go down there and drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys on tomorrow's video.